On Christmas Eve, 72-year-old Martha gave away her last dollar to a shivering beggar. What happened next restored her faith in humanity and rebuilt her dying town. The icy wind cut through Martha's thin coat as she shuffled down Main Street, her worn boots crunching on frozen snow. At 72, every step felt heavier these days, especially since her husband's passing. The pension check was late again, and the shelves of her tiny apartment held only a half-empty jar of peanut butter and stale crackers. But Martha still walked to the grocery every Tuesday, if only to feel the warmth of Mrs. Thompson's smile behind the register. Tonight, Christmas lights twinkled in shop windows, bathing the sleepy town in a golden glow. Martha paused by the bakery, breathing in the scent of gingerbread, when a hoarse cough shattered the silence. There, huddled in a doorway, sat a man shrouded in a tattered blanket, his face hidden beneath a snow-dusted hood. His gloveless hands trembled as he held a dented tin cup. Martha's heart clenched. She knew that cough, the ragged, wet sound of pneumonia. Her Henry had made that same noise in his final days. Without thinking, she reached into her threadbare purse and pulled out her last dollar bill, folded small like a secret. "For some warm tea, dear," she whispered, pressing it into his frozen fingers. The man looked up, and for a moment, Martha saw startlingly clear blue eyes, wise and weary, before he bowed his head again. "God bless you," he rasped. Martha walked home hungry that night, but her soul felt full. As she drifted to sleep, she never imagined that tin cup held more than coins. It held a fortune as secret. And that shivering stranger would soon return to change her life forever. 3 days after Christmas, a black limousine glided down Main Street, its polished chrome gleaming against the gray winter sky. Martha was tending her frostbitten rose bushes when it stopped outside her peeling picket fence. A tall man stepped out, impeccable in a charcoal overcoat, his silver hair combed back like old Hollywood royalty. When he turned, Martha gasped. "Those piercing blue eyes, you," she breathed, recognizing the beggar from the doorway. "You gave me more than $1. Mrs. Bennet," he said, voice thick with emotion, "you gave me hope." He introduced himself as Charles Whitmore, a reclusive tech billionaire who'd wandered away from his estate during a depressive episode. "I'd lost faith in humanity until your kindness," he admitted, revealing how her dollar bill bore a hidden serial number. He'd tracked through banks until he found her. "Come inside," Martha urged, ignoring her chipped taupes, overweak chamomile. Charles confessed his loneliness, estranged children, empty mansions, a life consumed by wealth. Martha listened, her wrinkled hands steady around her cup, when a cold draft rattled the windows. Charles noticed her thermostat set to 55 degrees. "I have a proposal," he said suddenly. "Let me repay your kindness by fixing your furnace tonight." Martha hesitated, pride warring with practicality, until another cough shook Charles' frame, a reminder that even billionaires bleed. "Just the furnace," she agreed softly. But as workers arrived with tools and compassion, Martha sensed this was only the beginning. Charles insisted Martha visit his estate to see the roses, a feeble excuse. But she agreed. The iron gates opened to reveal a mansion frozen in time, grand but lifeless. Like a museum, portraits of a younger Charles hung alongside words, but dust cloaked every surface. "My wife loved roses," he murmured, leading her to an overgrown greenhouse. Inside, Martha's gardener instinct stirred. She pruned a withered stem, and Charles flinched as if her touch pained him. Over tea in the silent library, he revealed the truth. His wife had passed tending those roses years prior. "I couldn't bear to look at them," he admitted. Martha placed her weathered hand over his. "She'd want them alive," she said gently. For the first time in decades, Charles wept. That night, Martha found a leather journal hidden in the greenhouse. Its pages held pressed roses and love letters to "My darling Clara." But as she turned a brittle page, a faded newspaper clipping fluttered out. "Local widow loses home to hospital bills." Martha's own face stared back from 20 years prior. Charles had known. He'd been searching for her all along. News spread quickly when Charles began visiting Martha daily. Soon, Main Street buzzed with whispers. "He is using her," snapped Doris at the beauty parlor. "No billionaire helps for free." Even Martha's son, Paul, drove in from the city, suspicion hardening his voice. "Mom, this is how scams start." But Martha stayed firm, replanting roses with Charles as reporters camped outside. When Charles announced he'd defund a new hospital wing in her name, the town erupted. At the diner, old George scoffed. She asked after his money. Martha's hand shook that night as she stared at the donated checks piling up. "I never wanted this," she told Charles. He knelt before her, eyes grave. "The truth is, Clara died in that crumbling hospital. Your generosity saved me, let me save others." But when Martha found fake donation jars around town bearing her face, even her faith wavered. Were they right? Then Paul discovered something the local widow clipping Charles had kept one tea about Martha. It was his wife's last act. Paying a stranger's medical bills before her death, Charles had been repaying Clara's kindness through Martha all along. On the first day of spring, the entire town gathered outside Martha's cottage. Charles stood beside her as the mayor unveiled a plaque, "The Clara Martha Whitmore Community Hospital." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Charles had quietly adopted Martha as his sister. ensuring she'd never won again. The greenhouse now overflowed with roses tended by local seniors, their laughter replacing decades of silence. Paul wiped his eyes as Martha cut the ribbon, her simple floral dress a far cry from rags. Later, Charles handed her a velvet box. Inside lay the journal, now holding a new pressed rose, this one from her revived garden. "You brought her back to me," he whispered, as years passed. The town thrived. Martha's story inspired kindness clubs and schools, while Charles found purpose in philanthropy. On her 80th birthday, Martha stood in the greenhouse, now filled with every rose variety Clara had ever loved. Charles joined her, his wan-lonely eyes bright. "You were my miracle," he said. Martha smiled, patting his arm. "No, dear. We were each other's." Outside, winter's last snow melted, revealing the first brave blooms of spring, proof that even the deepest frost golden tea stopped love from growing again.